Additional aids and services are available to individuals with disabilities. To make such a request, please contact us by email, by clicking the Help tab in the PD portal, or at pdportal@tamu.edu, by phone, including Relay Texas at 1-800-441-7323, or in writing to Train PD, PD Portal Support, 4477 TAMU, College Station, Texas 77843. Both a transcript and accessible document of the content presented in this webinar can be found as resources in the course description. Click on the blue links under Course Resources in the description. When a link is clicked, a new browser window will open.
So welcome to GotAccommodations, assisting adult learners in the classroom. My name is Beth Ponder. I'm the Director of Professional Development here at Train PD at TCAL. I'm also a national trainer for Learning to Achieve, which is the National Learning Disabilities training provided by the U.S. Department of Education. And I'll let Anne-Marie introduce herself.
I'm Anne-Marie Molinari Sanders, and I am a professional development specialist with Train PD at TCAL. And my background is in special ed. I have a master's degree. Currently, I do work with the Learning Disability Association nationally on the Adult Topics Committee. So very passionate about helping students with special learning needs. I think Beth and I both are, so we're just excited to get started and share this with you today. So,
all right, so I just want to go over our objectives for today. First is to recognize the definition of learning disabilities, and we'll spend some time on that, coming to consensus on our definition that we'll use for the rest of the day. We'll also understand the definition of assistive technology, or AT, and the term low tech as it refers to assistive technology. And third, we want to identify a variety of low tech AT tools that can be utilized in your classroom right away. So we're going to give you some tools you can take and use tomorrow. What we will be talking about today is classroom accommodations. So this session is going to focus on low-tech AT options that can assist students in the classroom instructional setting. This session is not going to focus on official accommodations that are permitted during high-stakes tests. We do have a recording in the PD portal on the GED and accommodations that has been recently put there. So if you want some more information about those types of accommodations, you can find that there. So I'm going to turn it back over to Anne-Marie right now, and she's going to get us warmed up. So Anne-Marie?
To get us started, I'm going to share this with you. This is a pictorial that I came up with when I was completing my master's degree. And I'm going to explain what this is, but there's a reason why it's called the House of Many Abilities. When I was completing my master's degree, I asked my students with learning disabilities to tell me what they saw or they felt when they looked at this house. And my students told me that this is how they felt every time they were learning something new. And I'm going to explain that in a little bit. Where is the front door to this house? Can we see it? Where is it? Can we agree that we can't see it? Can we agree on that it's not right out there where we can see it? All right, so here's our next question. Very important. What do the arrows represent? I had someone say when we did this presentation a year or two ago, ways to break into the house. And you know what? That's not far from the truth. So let me share with you what this means now. The House of Many Abilities pictorial explains how many students with LD feel when they are learning a new academic skill or concept. The door is analogous to the learning objectives. The arrows represent all the different paths a student with LD may take to get into the house because they can't find the door or the learning objective very easily. Each student with LD may follow a different path. And sometimes if the route is too confusing, the student with LD may shut down, withdraw during class, act out, or may fall behind. Does any of that sound familiar? Have you witnessed any of that in your classes? When a student may be struggling, they fall behind. This is the cold, hard truth, reality. Many students with LD will take an alternate route to a learning objective, and with many obstacles along the way. But I'm here to tell you, as an advocate for students with learning disabilities, students with learning disabilities are resilient, they're flexible, and they are creative. And they will find a way to get into the house and open that door and find that learning objective. But it can take longer. So this is where assistive technology comes into play. So let's go to the house this time. Here's the door. Now we see the door. So what does assistive technology do? Assistive technology, and this is the part I get really excited about, it provides an on-ramp, helping students maximize their strengths. Okay, it helps them maximize their strengths and compensate for their disabilities, but they still accomplish the same objectives as their non-disabled peers. Okay, some students can't walk up the stairs, can they? Because they may be in a wheelchair. So what do we offer them? We offer them an on-ramp so they can get up those stairs just like everyone else. So that's what assistive technology does. It also does something else that's very important, and that is it helps students with processing speed. They can accomplish a task faster and easier and get to that learning objective. Assistive technology is going to look for their strengths. What do they like to use? What are they comfortable using? That is where assistive technology helps our students. I also want to say this. Assistive technology is not just for students with learning disabilities. It can help everyone. It can help students work together as a team. And as we're going to see, you already have a lot of these things in your classroom right now. Okay, we're going to go into what are learning disabilities. There's lots of discussion on what an appropriate definition for learning disabilities should be. And I looked at a lot of research, and I decided that we would use a definition from the National Joint Commission on Learning Disabilities. It fits the work that we do as adult educators. And there's a couple reasons why. But one of the most important reasons is that it addresses and confirms that learning disabilities is a lifelong condition. It's not something that you outgrow as you get older. I like that definition. But we're going to break down the definition. Okay, so again, this is the National Joint Commission on Learning Disabilities, and some of this will probably sound familiar to you. Learning disabilities is a general term that refers to a heterogeneous group of disorders, which means they're all different, manifested by significant difficulties in the acquisition and use of listening, speaking, reading, writing, reasoning, or mathematical abilities. There can also be significant difficulty in what we call memory, long-term memory. Students with learning disabilities are challenged with long-term memory. So they have difficulty holding on to information. So reviewing becomes critically important. They also have difficulty sometimes with the higher executive functioning, critical thinking skills. So strategies to help them with that is important. So that's the first part. So let's go on to the next part. These disorders are intrinsic to the individual, presumed to be due to the central nervous system dysfunction, and may occur across the lifespan. This is important too. Problems in self-regulatory behaviors, social perception, and social interaction may exist with learning disabilities, but they do not by themselves constitute a learning disability. Okay, so there may be things in the environment that we're experiencing that can exacerbate a learning disability, but that doesn't mean that by themselves that they are a learning disability. Now, we highlighted this word concomitantly, and it basically simply means together. So let me read this. Although learning disabilities may occur together concomitantly with other disabilities, for example, sensory impairment, intellectual disabilities, emotional disturbance, or with intrinsic influences, cultural or linguistic differences, or insufficient or inappropriate instruction, they are not the result of these conditions or influences. Let's just break this down just a little bit. So I have pictures, and the first one we've really talked about. And this is adults with LD have extreme difficulty with acquiring, using, and retaining core academic skills. So let me take a step back and say this. I'm going to talk about 4 components of the definition. Researchers can agree on these 4 components. They like to debate back and forth about what's important, what's not important, but they have agreed on these 4 components. And I've given you all of my references at the end so that you can have them, but they've agreed on these. So let's look at component number 1. And we can tell by this gentleman's face that he's beyond frustrated right here. So the first one is the acquiring, the using, the retaining of core academic skills. What's interesting though about learning disabilities is that you are going to see unique patterns of strengths and weaknesses. So they can be strong in one area and they can have challenges in another area. One example of that would be a student can have a lot of difficulty putting their thoughts down on paper. But as soon as they're able to vocalize and talk, they're able to articulate their thoughts beautifully. Other students may have difficulty spelling and writing, but they can build anything. They have incredible kinesthetic abilities. So you're going to look for patterns of strengths and weaknesses and try to provide assistive technology that builds on those strengths. All right, so let's move to the next one. That it's the result of central nervous dysfunction and intrinsic to the individual. That means that it starts in the brain and it's internal to the individual. So let me share what a professor told me, one of my favorite professors when I was going through my master's. She said, think of it this way. There's a short circuit that occurs in the brain. And think about the house analogy. Information goes in, but it may not go in the right way, and that's input. But then it can also short circuit on the way out, which is output, or what you see in academic performance. So students may have difficulty inputting information and providing the output to you. So it just depends, but it's intrinsic to the individual. So then let's look at the next one. So I love this picture because you have a grandfather and a grandson working together. And this one is very emotional for me because learning disabilities do persist across the lifespan. They do not go away. The only thing that changes is the environment and the support systems that are available. Some environments can minimize the effects of a learning disability, while some maximize and even exacerbate a learning disability. So an example of that would be if an employee is got a lot of work deadlines, the learning disability is going to be more pronounced. If there are stresses at home, a learning disability may be more pronounced. Part of this other reality with this component is this. A learning disability can occur later in life. Component 4, LD may occur in combination with other disabling conditions, but they are not due to other conditions. So I put ADHD in there for a reason, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, because students with ADHD commonly have learning disabilities. And so learning disabilities can occur with other conditions. A student may have a physical disability and also have a learning disability. So there's that comorbidity that we talked about.
At this point, we're going to step into the assistive technology realm and hopefully give you all some tools before the end of our time together that you can go back and use. So in your mind, what is the definition of assistive technology? This is the definition from the Assistive Technology Act of 2004. AT is a generic term that includes any piece of equipment that is used to increase efficiency, maintain function, or improve the capability of individuals with disabilities. So if you want to go ahead to go to the next slide, we're going to talk about assistive technology as a continuum from very low tech to very high tech. And as Anne-Marie mentioned earlier, some of these things you're already going to have in your classrooms. And I want to reiterate that some of these tools that we talk about, that we're talking about it in the context of learning disabilities, these are tools that might be effective or helpful for any of your students. So some of these, especially some of these low tech ones, it's just great to have around in the classroom. So anybody might make use of them. Some of the more low tech are going to be the ones that are less expensive, easier to use. Some examples of what that might be is a handheld magnifying glass, large print text, canes and walkers, reachers and grabbers. I bet most of us have a pair of those grabbers somewhere. Large pencils. What you see here in the picture is what we call a pencil grip. And then up to more of a mid-tech assistive technology tool, which is often something a little bit more expensive, a little bit more complex, might be electronic or battery operated, and it might require some training on how to use it. And some of those things might be like a manual wheelchair, which is what we see here in our picture, talking spell checkers, books on CD, closed caption televisions, an alternative mouse or keyboard for a computer. So a little bit more expensive, but not too much. And then we go to what we would call high tech, which are going to be things that are more expensive, often will take training to learn how to use, training either for you as the instructor and or the student, and what we might call becoming more adaptive. So what we mean when we say adaptive is that the technology is specifically designed to meet the needs of that individual student.
Assistive technology becomes adaptive technology when a piece of equipment is specially designed for a student. So my example is that I worked with a wonderful young man at a high school in Houston when I was actually an instructional assistant in a self-contained life skills classroom for students with significant physical disabilities. And this particular gentleman wanted to act in a play on stage with the rest of the students. And so a wheelchair, very much like the one you see in this picture, was able to go from a sitting position to a standing position. So he was able to move around the stage and present his acting and act like everyone else. And it was empowering to him, and it was inspiring to see, with just simply being able to go from a sitting position to a standing position. How incredible was that for him? And so he could act like everyone else. He just had muscular dystrophy. So he lacked that muscle control, but he could use his voice, and he did.
Thank you, Anne Marie. I love that story. So to kind of finish up on this one, other examples would be, say, the smart board that you see here in the picture, digital hearing aids, specialized computer software, joysticks, electronic aids. All of these are things that you might see when you're talking about high-tech assistive technology. Thinking about assistive technology as an on-ramp for students with learning disabilities to reach their goals and to level the playing field. So first off, next one, we're going to think a little bit about assistive technology. And what we're going to do is we're going to share some pictures with you, some pictures of assistive technology. And the first activity we're going to do, we're going to concentrate on math and writing. Okay, so as I share the pictures with you, I want you to think about these tools in the context of math and writing. Let's show our first picture. How much you use that in a classroom? Index cards. They got a ring there. They got a hole punch in them. How much you use that? A tin pie plate. What do y'all think? All right, let's see. Looks like a pen. How might you use that as an assistive technology tool? So first off, what we want to talk about a little bit is some tools that you might use for mathematics. And you'll notice the way we have our slides set up, we have the first column, which is assistive technology options. And then the second column is a content area. So as we're thinking about some of these tools that what we might be using, we tried to correlate it for you to an area of math, writing, or reading that particular AT might help. Thinking about some low-tech AT options for mathematics, first we want to think about physical manipulatives, like the fraction tiles, which we had the picture of, counting blocks, geometric shapes, going back to the pie tin that a number of you commented on, and play money. And again, some of these are things that you're already using in your classrooms. Next up would be virtual manipulatives. And there are a number of free resources that are available. Here are 3 that we've listed: Didax, GeoGebra, and the Math Learning Center. GeoGebra and the Math Learning Center both also have an app as well as the website that you can go to. They have graphing calculators, 3D calculators. So virtual manipulatives, again, this is something you can go and use right away. Rulers, both physical and virtual. Calculators, both physical and online. And then the last one that we wanted to share is thinking about graph paper, study guides, and anchor charts. And anchor charts, that's something that can be great for across any number of content areas. We are big fans of graph paper, can be really helpful both in math as well as writing. So we're going to talk about writing next. We've got 2 slides for writing, thinking about physical writing. Written expression disabilities really come in kind of 2 forms, lower skill and higher skill. And the first one is the transcription, or the actual physical writing. And then the second will be composition, where we get to organizing our thoughts. Thinking about the actual physical art of writing, some of the things that are assistive technology tools that you can use are the pencil grips that we mentioned, we saw the picture of earlier in our presentation, oversized pens and pencils, slant boards. If you're familiar with a slant board, this is that you can kind of put on a table or a lamp that's slanted so you can put your paper or your book on it. And again, these are the kinds of things you can just have available in your classroom, right? You can have various sizes and shapes of pens and pencils. and a student can find what works best for them. And then after slant boards, we have adaptive paper. When we think about adaptive paper, we can think about textured paper or different colors of paper or weight of paper. And then grammar and punctuation apps. There are a number of different ones. Grammarly is one that a lot of you may have heard of, and the Grammarly has a free version and a for-pay version that can be a very useful tool for students. And then just a basic notebook or journal, right? Free. Does anybody do free writing in your classroom? So having that available and part of what's happening in the classroom is really great. And then next, what we want to talk about is, okay, so now we're getting to composition and trying to put together our writing. So some things that you can think about having available in your classroom is a dictionary, both print and online. Merriam-Webster has a great online dictionary that includes a thesaurus, the index cards, and a key ring, which was one of the pictures that we showed earlier. Great for organizing writing and organizing ideas. Post-it notes and graphic organizers. And again, those are things that you can use both virtually or in print. I know that I've planned entire trainings with Post-it notes and rearranging them on the wall to organize my thoughts and my information. And then the last two are speech to text and then text to speech. And a couple of examples of tools that are readily available to you for speech to text are Google Docs, and there's a voice typing tool that you can turn on, as well as Office 365 that has a microphone that you can use for speech to text. And then text to speech, a couple that are readily available that you might use if you haven't tried them is one called Natural Reader and one called TTS Reader.
Do you have a different perspective now on what may be in your classroom already? Have you looked at it from a different lens? And now we're going to do reading, and we're going to do the same thing. So let's start with this one. What is this? What are these, I should say? What are these? What are these things called? What may they be used for? They are colored overlays. They're called highlighters, actually. All right, so let's go to the next picture. This one's probably too easy. What are those and what are they used for? All right, so we've got two more here. What would be the first picture? I brought you both those up. The first picture on the left, what are those and what could they be used for? Let's talk about the graphic organizers for reading. What do they do? When we think about the reading components on the right-hand side, we're thinking about comprehension, fluency, vocabulary. So on the right side, it gives you the reading component. On the left side is your assistive technology, just like we saw with math and writing. So we've got annotation tools, pens, markers, Post-it notes. Those are going to help students with comprehension and even possibly vocabulary, depending on what they're working on. And here's the cool thing. Many of the digital reading tools that you're familiar with, ReadWorks, Common Lit, guess what? They have digital annotation tools now that students can actually use and write on. So that's becoming much more user-friendly. Then you have your tracking aids, and that is going to be your reading strips. And reading strips can be simple as a sentence strip. A sentence strip can be something in K through 12 where you would write sentences on. So I guess what I want to say is a tracking aid can be anything. It can be a page flag, which is like your Post-it note sticky, or it can be a piece of construction paper that's folded long ways so that they can track. And that helps with fluency and comprehension. And then you've got your contrast aids, which are your highlighters and highlighter tape. So let me share highlighter tape with you. This one may be a new one, and it's exactly what it sounds like. It's actual tape that's different colors, and you can tear off a piece and you can highlight the text and you can write on it. And it is a little bit more expensive, but it is available if you think that there's a student that may benefit from it. So it's highlighter tape that can be reused and it's put on the piece of paper. Then we have your contrast aids. And what we looked at, that very first picture, is an eyeliner, and the student will use it as they read. So it helps them with fluency and comprehension. So it can also be a tracking tool too. And then you have your colored overlay sheets. The next ones we have are going to be for a variety of reading components, but let's look at number one. There is a wonderful app that I've used a lot, and it's the Merriam-Webster app. And if you're not using Merriam-Webster in your classroom, I want you to promise me that you start using it and have your students download it on their phone. They have a word a day. There's a thesaurus. It gives them games that they can play. And it's a wonderful, wonderful resource. And it's free. It's absolutely free. So I think that every student should have the Merriam-Webster app on their phone. And vocabulary.com is wonderful for vocabulary and phonemic awareness. And it's also free. And this is a word identification website. Vocabulary.com allows students to hear the words out loud. They can have their own word lists and they can play games. And it's wonderful. And there is an Android app as well as an Apple app that can be downloaded on the phone. And then number three, graphic organizers, mind maps, and anchor charts. Graphic organizers can be virtual. Mind maps are not a preset template. They start out with a circle and then they build from there. And then anchor charts, we talked about anchor charts for writing, but they can be for math, but they can also be for reading. And it helps students sequence information. They're very popular in K through 12, and teachers will hang the anchor charts on the wall so the students can kind of look over and see, oh, that's what I need to have in my essay, my 5-paragraph essay. I need an introduction, I need a body, and I need a conclusion. So that's how it helps students. Text-to-speech is very important for students that have dyslexia, that may have difficulty with comprehension and fluency, because it allows the students not to have to focus on sounding out the words, because they're trying so hard with their fluency and they're sounding out their words, they have nothing left for comprehension. TTS Reader is available as an app and a Chrome extension, and Natural Reader is available as a Chrome extension. And both of them are available on the website. And how these work is that if you're using the extensions, you literally will read a website to the student. But you can also take a body of text and place it onto the website, and it'll read the text for the student. And those are free. And those are the best free ones that I have found. And believe me, I've looked at a lot of them. So that's why I'm recommending these two.
What kind of tools are helpful to help students to articulate the phonics or words in class? Some students have never received speech therapy.
There are a lot of free apps that can be accessed on their phone for phonics. So I would recommend that. They can listen to it and learn on their phone with the apps. I recommend that. I also would recommend for their writing, they can actually dictate, they can actually practice into their phone, and then they can hear their pronunciation back. That's another idea. Look in the PD portal for the Teacher Tuesdays, Manager Mondays, Workforce Wednesdays, I just want to say thank you so much.
Thank you, everybody, for being here.
Thank you, Beth and Anne Marie, for a fantastic session.
Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
We hope you enjoyed this pre-recorded webinar. After you have passed the final test with a score of 80% or greater and have received your certificate of completion, please take a few moments to complete the course evaluation. Participant feedback helps Train PD at TCAL continue to provide high-quality professional development. To leave a course feedback, please go to the completed portion of your transcript. To do this, hover over the My Learning tab and select View Your Transcript. Click on the drop-down arrow next to the word Active and select Completed. Then, click Evaluate in the drop-down menu next to the course you just completed. Please note that your feedback is greatly appreciated.